I'm recording this audio log from a hotel room, 300 miles away from that cursed village. The door is deadbolted, and I've pushed the heavy dresser against it. My hands won't stop shaking. Every shadow in this room feels like it's moving. The television is on with the volume up, but I can still hear the scratching from the walls. If you're listening to this, take it as a warning. If you ever inherit an old property in a remote place and find a door sealed with wax and iron, turn around, run, and never look back. I made the mistake of opening it, and now I think it followed me. It all started 2 weeks ago when I received the letter about my grandfather's passing. The envelope was yellowed with age, the wax seal bearing a symbol I didn't recognize, something that looked like an eye surrounded by angular script. Inside, a lawyer's letter informed me that my grandfather had left me his old stone house in a remote mountain village in eastern Anatolia. I hadn't seen him since I was a child. My only memories were of a stern, silent man who smelled of pipe tobacco and old books. My mother never talked about him. When I asked why we didn't visit, she would change the subject, her face tight with something that looked like fear. The location was so isolated that it didn't even show up properly on GPS. I had to stop 3 times to ask for directions, and each time the locals would give me strange looks when I mentioned the village name. One gas station attendant, a weathered woman with worry lines etched deep into her face, grabbed my wrist and said, "That place! People don't come back the same." I laughed it off. I wish I hadn't. The drive up the mountain was terrifying. The roads were narrow, barely wide enough for one vehicle, winding through thick forests that swallowed the sunlight. The trees here were different, twisted, their branches reaching out like gnarled fingers. I didn't see any birds. That should have been my first warning. A forest without birdsong is a dead forest. By the time I arrived, the sun had already set, casting long, twisted shadows across the valley. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in minutes. Village was nearly abandoned. Only a few elderly people remained, their houses dark and shuttered despite the early evening hour. As I walked toward my grandfather's house, I felt their eyes on me, watching from behind cracked curtains and barely opened doors. They didn't wave. They didn't smile. They just watched with a mixture of pity and fear. An old man, his face cracked like tree bark, his eyes milky with cataracts, grabbed my arm as I passed. His grip was surprisingly strong for someone so frail. He leaned in close, his breath smelling of anise and decay, and whispered in broken English, "When the sun sets, lock the mirrors. Cover them with cloth. And no matter what you hear, don't answer the voice in the walls. It learns. It mimics. It waits." I pulled away, thinking he was just a superstitious old fool. I wish I had listened. The house loomed before me, massive and oppressive. A 2-story structure made of dark stone that seemed to absorb the moonlight rather than reflect it. The windows were like dead eyes, dark and empty. It smelled of damp earth and old paper, with an underlying scent I couldn't quite place, something sweet and rotten. Inside it was cold, the kind of bone-chilling cold that the fireplace couldn't chase away, as if the house itself was rejecting warmth. The electricity worked, but the lights flickered constantly, casting dancing shadows that made my skin crawl. The first night passed without major incident, mostly. Just the settling sounds of an old house. Creaking wood, wind howling through the chimney, the occasional thump from upstairs that I attributed to the old structure adjusting to temperature changes. But there was a strange feeling inside me, the feeling that I wasn't alone. I felt like someone was standing right behind me, breathing on the back of my neck, but every time I turned around, the room was empty. At one point, I could have sworn I saw a figure standing in the hallway, just outside the circle of light from my lamp. When I looked directly at it, there was nothing, just shadows. That night I had the first dream. I was standing in the basement, though I hadn't been down there yet. The iron door was open and something was calling my name. Not out loud, but directly into my mind. The voice was familiar. It sounded like my mother, then my grandfather, then myself. It kept shifting, cycling through voices of people I knew and loved. "Come see," it whispered. "Come see what's been waiting for you." I woke up drenched in sweat, my sheets soaked through. The temperature in the room had dropped so low I could see my breath. And on the window, written in the condensation from the inside, were words in a language I didn't know. On the second day, I decided to explore the study. My grandfather was a scholar of history and folklore, specializing in pre-Islamic mythology and demon lore. His desk was cluttered with books in multiple languages: Turkish, Arabic, Aramaic, some I couldn't identify. Many were ancient, their pages brittle and yellowed. There were notebooks filled with diagrams and symbols, some circled in red ink, others crossed out violently. On the walls hung maps of ancient Mesopotamia, with certain locations marked with red pins. Photographs showed archaeological digs, stone tablets covered in cuneiform, and something else, blurred figures in the background that shouldn't have been there. In the center of the desk, I found his journal. The leather was cracked and worn, stained with what looked like wine or blood. The last entry was dated just 2 days before his death. The handwriting was shaky, erratic, the letters becoming more jagged and desperate as the entry progressed. It read, "I've managed to bind it for now. The iron door in the basement holds the seal. Use the old Mesopotamian binding rituals, reinforced with Quranic verses etched into the metal. But it's getting stronger. Every night it whispers to me in my sleep. It knows my name. It knows my sins. It knows what I did in Damascus, what I saw in the ruins of Babylon. It promises to show me things, teach me things. Sometimes I'm tempted. God forgive me, sometimes I'm tempted. To whoever finds this. Don't break the wax, don't speak to it, don't let it know you're afraid. And above all, don't let the jinn out. Some doors were sealed for a reason." There were other entries too, going back months. My grandfather had found something during an excavation, a clay tablet that spoke of an entity bound in the time of King Solomon. He'd become obsessed with it, translating the text, following its trail through history. And somehow he'd brought it here, or it had followed him. The journal spoke of rituals, of binding spells, of long nights spent reinforcing the seal. The last few entries became increasingly paranoid. "It's in the walls now. I can hear it moving. It sounds like insects, thousands of them, crawling through the spaces between the stones." I laughed nervously, trying to dismiss it. A jinn? I thought my grandfather had lost his mind in his old age, driven mad by isolation and obsession. I didn't believe in smokeless fire or ancient demons. I was a rational man, educated in the modern world. But that night, my skepticism began to crack. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to ignore the feeling of being watched when I heard it. A scratching sound. It was coming from inside the wall, right next to my head. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It was rhythmic, deliberate, like nails dragging across wood or something digging its way through. Then the scratching stopped and the whispering began. At first it was faint, like the rustling of dry leaves or the distant murmur of voices in another room. But as I focused, as I foolishly strained to listen, I could make out words. It wasn't speaking Turkish or English. It sounded ancient, guttural, the syllables harsh and alien. And then it changed. The voice transformed. It became clear. It became familiar. It was my grandfather's voice, exactly as I remembered it from childhood. "Come downstairs," said the voice from the hallway. "I have something to show you, something important, something I should have shown you years ago." I froze, ice water flooding my veins. My grandfather was dead. I had buried him myself, watched them lower the casket into the ground. "Come down," the voice insisted, more urgently now. "It's cold in the dark." "I'm waiting for you. I've always been waiting." I grabbed the flashlight and a heavy iron poker from the fireplace. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold them. I stepped into the hallway, the floorboards creaking under my feet. "Who's there?" I shouted, trying to sound braver than I felt. Silence. The house was dead silent, as if it was holding its breath. I checked every room on the upper floor. Nothing. Just furniture covered in dust sheets, looking like ghosts in the beam of my flashlight. Then I heard a sound from downstairs. The creaking of the basement door opening. The long, drawn-out sound of old hinges protesting. I went to the kitchen, my heart hammering against my ribs. The basement door, which I had found locked earlier, I'd tried the handle out of curiosity, was now ajar. A foul smell rose from the darkness below, thick and cloying. The stench of sulfur and rotting flesh, mixed with something else, something that made my eyes water and my stomach turn. It smelled like burning hair and copper. Despite every instinct screaming at me to run, to leave the house and never come back, I descended the stairs. The wooden steps groaned under my weight, and I swear I could hear something breathing in the darkness below, a wet, ragged sound. The basement was a labyrinth of old furniture and dust sheets, boxes stacked to the ceiling, creating narrow corridors that twisted and turned. There were things down here, old things. I saw what looked like archaeological artifacts, clay tablets, broken pottery, stone idols with features worn smooth by time. There were also personal items, old photographs, letters tied with string, a child's toy that looked out of place among the scholarly debris. But at the far end, partially hidden behind a massive bookshelf, there was a door I hadn't noticed before. It was heavy iron, completely out of place in this rustic house. It looked ancient, like something transplanted from a much older building. It was covered in strange symbols painted in red, not paint, I realized with horror, but blood. The symbols were layered, repainted multiple times, some old and faded, others fresh. The edges were sealed with thick red wax, and iron chains had been wrapped around the frame, held in place with massive padlocks. This was the door from the journal. I stood there, mesmerized by the symbols. Some I recognized from my grandfather's notes, protective wards, binding seals, names of power in ancient Aramaic. The air around the door felt electrically charged, making my skin tingle and my hair stand on end. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in the space of a few feet. My breath came out in white clouds. Then the voice came again. But this time it wasn't my grandfather's voice. It was mine. From the other side of the iron door, I heard my own voice speaking to me. "Open it," my mimic said. "We can be free, just break the seal. Don't you want to know? Don't you want to see what grandfather found? All that knowledge, all that power, it's been waiting for someone like you, someone curious, someone brave." It sounded exactly like me. The same tone, the same inflection, even the slight hesitation I have when I'm nervous. It was terrifying. "Who are you?" I stammered. "I am you," the voice replied. "I'm the part of you that wants to see, the part that needs to know. Open it. Let me out. Let us out." The voice multiplied. Suddenly there were dozens of voices, all mine, speaking in unison. "Open it, open it, open it." Then they changed, my mother's voice. "Please, son, I need your help." My father, dead for 10 years. "Boy, don't leave me in here." Friends from college, my ex-girlfriend, all of them pleading, begging, demanding. The cacophony grew louder, more desperate, until it felt like my skull would split open from the pressure. I don't know what came over me. Maybe I was in a trance. Maybe the entity had some psychic pull, worming its way into my thoughts, my will. My hand moved on its own, reaching out even as my mind screamed at it to stop. I reached out and chipped away at the wax. It crumbled easily, like dried blood, falling away in flakes that seemed to writhe on the floor. I pulled the heavy iron bolt. The mechanism groaned, the sound of metal grinding on metal echoing in the silence, resonating through my bones. The chains fell away, though I don't remember unlocking them. The door swung open. At first, I couldn't see anything. The darkness inside was absolute, deeper than any natural shadow. It seemed to move, to pulse like a living thing. I shone my flashlight into the room. It was a small stone cell, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet, empty except for a single chair in the center. But the shadows were wrong. The light from my flashlight couldn't penetrate the corners of the room. It was as if the darkness there was solid, pushing back against the light. In the corner, barely visible, a figure was crouching. It was facing the wall, perfectly still. It looked human, but the proportions were distorted, subtly wrong in ways that made my brain hurt to look at. Its arms were too long, hanging down past its knees, the elbows bent at sickening angles that defied anatomy. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, stretched tight over its bones like parchment. I could see veins beneath the surface, black and pulsing. "Hello," I whispered, my voice cracking. The figure stopped moving, though I hadn't noticed it moving before. Then slowly, with excruciating deliberateness, it began to stand up. It unfolded itself like a piece of paper, joints popping and cracking with sounds that made my teeth ache. It rose higher and higher, 7 feet, 8 feet, until it nearly touched the ceiling, its spine curved at an impossible angle. It turned around, the movement smooth and liquid, wrong in every way. It had no face. Where a face should have been, there was only smooth, blank skin. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. Just an expanse of pale flesh that seemed to shift and ripple as I looked at it. Yet I could feel it staring into my soul, boring into the deepest parts of me, seeing every secret, every sin, every dark thought I'd ever had. A scream exploded in my mind, not a sound, but a psychic wave of pure terror that dropped me to my knees. I felt a wave of heat, like standing next to an open oven, like being too close to fire. The jinn, created from smokeless fire, as the old text said. The entity didn't walk. It glided its feet, if it had feet not touching the ground. It moved toward me with unnatural speed, covering the distance in a heartbeat. I could smell it now, that sweet rotten smell, like flowers growing in a graveyard. I slammed the iron door shut with all my strength, but I couldn't lock it. The wax was broken. The seal was gone. The chains lay useless on the floor. A force slammed against the door from the inside, throwing me backward across the room. I crashed into the bookshelf, books and artifacts raining down on me. The iron door flew off its hinges with a deafening crash, the metal screaming as it tore free. The door sailed across the basement and embedded itself in the opposite wall. I scrambled to my feet and ran. I ran up the stairs, taking them 3 at a time, tripping, falling, my hands scraping against the rough stone walls. I could hear it behind me. It wasn't running. It was flowing like water, like smoke, like a shadow detaching from the darkness and given form. I could hear it whispering in my ear, thousands of voices speaking at once in languages I didn't know and some I did. It was saying my name, all my names. Names I'd been called as a child, names I'd used online, names I'd never told anyone. It knew me. I burst out of the house into the cold night air, gasping, my lungs burning. The village was dark. Every light was off. Every door was closed. The people knew. They'd always known. I fumbled for my car keys, my hands numb with cold and fear, dropping them in the dirt. I could feel the heat approaching from the open front door of the house, could see the shadows inside writhing and boiling. I grabbed the keys, jumped into the car, and turned the ignition. The engine sputtered. "No, no, no, please," I begged, tears streaming down my face. The figure appeared in the doorway of the house. It stood there, impossibly tall, silhouetted against the dark hallway. Behind it, the interior of the house was glowing with a faint orange light, as if fires were burning in every room. The engine roared to life. I slammed on the gas, tires spinning in the mud, gravel spraying. The car fishtailed, nearly going into a ditch, but I corrected and we shot forward down the mountain road. I drove like a madman, risking my life on every curve, not daring to look in the rearview mirror. But I could feel it behind me, keeping pace, never falling behind. I didn't stop until I reached the city. I didn't stop until dawn broke and I found this hotel. I checked in using cash, gave a false name, took a room on the 4th floor where I thought I'd be safe. I thought I had escaped. I thought distance would save me. I was wrong. For the last hour, the temperature in this room has been dropping. I've turned the heater up to maximum, but it doesn't help. The smell of sulfur has started seeping through the air conditioning vents, faint at first but growing stronger. The television began changing channels on its own, flipping through static until it settled on a dead channel, showing nothing but white noise. But in the static, I can see shapes, figures. One of them looks like the entity. And just moments ago, while I was recording this, I heard a knock on the bathroom door, 3 sharp raps. I'm alone in this room. The door was locked from the inside. Wait, I can hear it again. It's coming from the bathroom. And now I hear a voice, my voice. "Let me in," it whispers. "I forgot something. I left something important. You know what it is. Open the door." The handle is starting to turn. I didn't lock it. Why didn't I lock it? I'm going to try the door to the hallway now. I need to get out, but the dresser is too heavy. I can't move it. The bathroom door is opening. I can see something in the crack, something pale and elongated. The window. I have to try the window. I'm on the 4th floor, but maybe there's a ledge. Maybe I can climb down. The bathroom door is fully open now. It's standing there, looking at me, knowing me. It's smiling. I can't see its face, but somehow I know it's smiling. If you find a sealed door, leave it closed. Some secrets should stay buried. Some things were bound for a reason. The seal wasn't to keep it in. The seal was to protect us, and I broke it. I'm at the window now. It's locked. The entity is walking toward me. I'm going to break the glass. I can hear sirens outside. Did someone call the police? Or is that just in my head? The glass is breaking. I'm going to jump. God forgive me. I'm going to J.